You know the drill. Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet. Hey, wow, Zion. Chet, Tet, Yod. Kaf, Lamed. Mem, Nun, Samek, Ayin. Pei, Tzadei. Kof, Resh, Sin, Shin, Tau. I want to spend some time again with the Aleppo Codex, only because you have come so far, and this is a real treat to be able to recognize some of the words and certainly the consonants and the vowels of this ancient manuscript. If you take a look at the first line, again, remember how we're reading right to left, you will recognize the wow with the patak, followed by a yod with a shva. Now that yod is actually doubled. There's a disappearing dagesh forte there. That's that skinum levi. Oh, the skinum levi, where in sibilants and certain consonants, including the yod, the dagesh mysteriously disappears. And so we have to just put the dagesh there. You know the vocab and you know the form so well that you start to see these patterns and it doesn't become so confusing or chaotic. So there's a dagesh forte, though it's not actually appearing. There's a doubled yod with the first yod having a silent shva closing the syllable of wow patak with a yod with a silent shva, and then the wow with the vocal shva, followed by a hey. I know that looks like the barn door is closed and the chet, but that's just the scribe's handwriting. So it's a hey with a hirek yod. So our first word in this line is wayahi, wayahi, wayahi. And it's a verbal form that you will learn later in the semester. The next word is an aleph with a patak followed by a chet. Notice there the barn door is securely closed with a hatef patak. So the first two syllables acha, acha. Then we have a resh with the tsere yod, acharei, acharei. The next word, hopefully you can see there's a mem with a holem wow, followed by a tau, mot, mot, which means death. And then the death of whom? We see a mem with a holem, followed by a shin with a segol hey. You see that the barn door is just a little bit not locked. It's not secured. So Moshe, Moshe. So after the death of Moses, Moses is then given a little bit of an explanation, a beautiful statement here. Hopefully it can describe all of us. There's an ayin with a segol, a bait with a segol, followed by a dalet. Hopefully you recognize this segolet noun. Eved, Eved. You can see the accent there under the tail of the ayin, that little hash mark. Eved. This is in construct to the next word on the second line, which is the divine name, as we will say Adonai or Yahweh. Eved, hopefully you recognize from your vocabulary, Moses, a servant of Adonai. What a great description. And then we start the next sentence with another verb form. There again, the wow with the patak. This time we do see the dagesh forte in the yod, followed by an aleph with a cholam, followed by a mem with a segol, followed by a resh. So wayomer, wayomer, wayomer. The wow with the patak followed by the yod sort of gives it a Y sound, a wayomer. This was the first word, wayomer, that I just started to automatically see as wayomer. I remember in Espanol learning that language, and one day manzana was no longer an apple, it was a manzana. And I didn't need to translate it in my mind and go from Espanol to English. It was just manzana. The same here. Wayomer, I no longer need to parse it. I no longer need to gloss it into English. Wayomer. I just have it as a word. This is called automaticity in language acquisition circles. You want to get to a place where you have words that you're so familiar with, you don't even have to translate them because they're Wayomer. Wayomer Adonai. Once again, we have the divine name. The Lord said, and then we have the preposition El, right? There's the Aleph with the Segol, followed by the Lamed with that weird hair spike. Again, this is the scribal handwriting at work here. El to or towards. We have a makef there connecting it. Kind of gets connected with the yod with the vocal shva. Y, followed by a hey, that's still the door is not locked, so it's a hey, it's not a chet. So Yeho, there's a holam wow, Yeho. Then we have a shin with a kibbutz with an accent on it. So Yehoshua. There's the furtive patak underneath the ayin. So the Lord spoke to Joshua. Yehoshua. And then we get a little bit of unpacking of which Joshua is he speaking with. And we have a word that you might be familiar with. This is in what we call construct state. It's in a relational state with the word that follows it. So there's some vowel transformation that occurs here. So don't get scared. You know your vocab well enough that some of the vowel transformation should at this time be not frightening and wanting you to cry and weep in your pillow. No, you see a bait with the Dagesh Lina. Why the Dagesh Lina, not the Dagesh Forte in this Bagad Kapat letter? Because it's the initial consonant. Underneath the bait, you have a Hirek and then a final form Nun, Bin, which may sound a lot like Bain or our brother in this class known as Ben. So son of in construct state, as we'll learn later in this semester. Son of who? Well, Nun, Shurek, final form Nun, right? He is the son of Nun. And that, just to give us further clarification of this Yehoshua, of who he is, he's also described in this participle that's used substantively like a noun, and it's a mem with a vocal shva because it's under the initial consonant. Then it's a shin with a patak, followed by a resh with a tsere, followed by a tau. So it's masharet, misharet, misharet, misharet. This actually is in a form that it's expressing in some ways that this Yehoshua was ministering at some point to Moses, Moshe. So it means to minister, or sometimes translated as an aid. Um, but the sense is that they're alongside, and we see this, of course, in the life of Joshua, don't we? So he's a misharet to who? Moshe. That's the mem with the holam, shin with the segol with the hay. It is a hay. The barn door is not locked. So Moshe. And then we have the introduction of direct speech, a very common word. It's the verbal form amar, aleph mem resh, with the lamed preposition. Yes, you will learn that you can attach prepositions to verbal forms. And of course, we're seeing some compensatory lengthening in part because this is a guttural letter verb, and you just start to get used to it. So it's a lamed with the tsere, aleph, with a holam that's kind of been streaked. With the accent, and then the holums over the mem. So lay more, followed with the final consonant being a resh. Lay more. Let's turn to chapter 7, beginning on page 56. We'll be looking at Hebrew adjectives. The critical part of this is that adjectives will agree with their nouns that they're describing in terms of their grammatical gender, masculine or feminine, or number, singular or plural. Sometimes this is referred to in grammars as concord, meaning that they are in agreement. And although we often fail in understanding well our own English language, sometimes we have to learn another language to appreciate some of the grammar in our own language. So again, adjectives will agree with their nouns in grammatical gender and number. Inflection is a way of describing how words will change their form, in this case, according to the changes in grammatical gender or in number. So going from masculine to feminine or singular to plural, that's called inflection, a changing of form. In Hebrew, we have the inflected forms for masculine singular, masculine plural, feminine singular, feminine plural. We've already met the dual form, different inflection. We don't see that in adjectives. Fortunately, we see here just 4 inflectional endings. We have learned them already because we've learned them for the nouns. So we're going to look at our paradigm adjective tov, that's tet, holem, wow, bait, often glossed in English as good. Let's look at it closer up. The adjective tov, masculine singular is tet, holem, wow, bait. Tet, holem, wow, bait. Tov. Masculine plural is tet, holem, wow, with bait, hirik, yod, mem, 2-syllable word. It's a final form mem, right? Tovim. Tovim. Notice there's no dagesh lina or dagesh forte in the bet. Bet being a bagad kapat letter. Tovim. For the feminine singular, we see a tet with a holem wow, and then the next syllable is a bait, no dagesh lina, no dagesh forte, kametz hey. Tova. Tova. Again, a 2-syllable word. Tova. And then the feminine plural is tet with a holem wow. And then the second syllable is bait, no dagesh li, no dagesh forte, holem wow, tau. To vote. To vote. And for this, of course, we have a song. And I like to go to Middle Earth, and we'll sing with the dwarves by singing Tov, Tovim, Tova, Tovot. Tov, Tovim, Tova, Tovot. Tov, Tovim, Tova, Tovot. A way to be able to memorize this, and if we're memorizing it, it probably means it's going to be on the final exam. Of course, not all inflections are going to have the Tov, Tovim, Tova, Tovot. We are going to see when you add on that heavy weight, we're going to see syllable stabilization, or what is known as propretonic reduction. We're going to see in the propretonic syllable some type of reducing in the vowel class. Normally we see a long vowel reduced to a vocal schwa, especially if it's open. And we'll see this happen, and you should become very familiar with it. Propretonic reduction. Our little dog on the seesaw. Seesaw syllable stabilization. Let's take a look at the example that they give us here. This is for gadol, one of your vocabulary words meaning great, large. This is a key word in the book of Jonah. Gadol. In the masculine plural, we add on the heavy weight of the hirik yod mem, the heavy weight, and so propredonic reduction. We see the comets underneath the gimel reduced to a vocal schwa to gedolim, gedolim, gedolim. Put it together, gedolim, gedolim, gedolim. With the feminine singular, because we add on again that heavy weight for our syllable stabilization, we see with the comets hey at the end, the propretonic reduction of the comets to the vocal schwa, ge, do, la, 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 ge, do, la. And then with the plural form in the feminine, the heavy holem wow tau ending causing propretonic reduction, ge do lot, ge do lot, gedolot, gedolot, gedolot. So propionic reduction in this form, this is not going to be our final exam form, but it is good for you to again start to be comfortable with the concept of propionic reduction. So gadol, gedolim, gedola, gedolot. We can see this in other patterns, for example, with zakain, zakain. The old man is walking with zakain, glossed in English as old, oftentimes seen as a noun substantively, as an old man, an elderly man, or an old woman, an elderly woman. So the masculine singular, zakain, and then we see the propionic reduction in the plural form, zakanim, zakanim, zakanim. Get that sere out and make sure that you are able to identify it, zakanim. And then for the singular feminine, zakena, zakena. Three-syllable word. Remember, that's a vocal schwa under the zayin. Under the kof, it's a tsere. It's also an open syllable. And then the last syllable is open because it's a nun kamathe. So this is actually three open syllables together. Zakena, zakena, zakena. And then lastly, with the plural form, this actually has two open syllables and one closed syllable. The first is an open syllable, zayin, vocal schwa, z. The second is the open syllable, kof, with a tsere. And then the third syllable is closed, nun, holum, wow, tau. So z, k, note, 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 z, k, note. We see this in other adjectives with various forms. So yashar, yashar, that has the two comets, the one under the yod, the other under the shin, with the final consonant being a resh. So yashar, and then the propionic reduction occurs. So in the masculine plural, yasharim, yasharim, yasharim. Three-syllable word. The first two syllables are open. The third syllable is closed with the resh, hirek, yod, final form mem. Yesharim, yesharim, yesharim. And for the feminine singular, you see the three syllables, all of them open. Yod with the vocal schwa, shin with the comets, and then the resh with the comets hey. So that's open, right? Because it's a comets hey, it's a vowel letter. So yeshara, 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 yeshara. And then in the plural form, two open syllables, one closed syllable, yesharot, yesharot, yesharot. We can also see it with the word meaning wise, this adjective expressing sort of skillful. So hacham, chacham, as you are again preparing for a speech, you need to clear your throat. You hacham, and you'll have a wise speech. So chacham, and then we see the propionic reduction, but since this is a guttural het does not take vocal schwa. Instead, it likes the composite schwa, known as a hatef vowel, so a hatef patak. Ha chamim, ha chamim, ha chamim. And then for the singular feminine, we have again the propionic reduction to the hatef patak, ha chama, ha chama, ha chama, ha chama. That's like if you really have to clear your throat. Ha chama. And then lastly, our plural form for the feminine, ha chamot, ha chamot, ha chamot. What do we do with those adjectives that have a segol hey ending? We see that the segol hey often drops off. We call that apocompation, dropping off. And so you look down at the singular, we do have the segol hey. So cache, cache, remember segol hey has that a ending, cache. And then in the plural, that hey drops off and we see the appearance of the plural ending im, right? Tov, tovim. So this is kashim, kashim, final form mem. Hopefully you see that on the end of that masculine plural. starting to see some familiarity with these endings. And then for the feminine singular, again, the hey of the original lexical form has apocryphated, has dropped off, but we have the comets hey appearing, so it's kasha, kasha, kasha. And same thing with the feminine plural with the ending ot, holum, wow, tau, and the hey has dropped off, apocryphated, so it's kashot, kashot. Remember that we have geminate nouns, we also have geminate adjectives. These are words that have historically three consonants, and the second and third consonant are duplicates. They are Gemini, they're twins. So originally at some point the word that we Englishly gloss in the English language as many was originally Resh Bait Bait. Resh Bait Bait. The Gemini, of course, is the duplicated bait. So with the geminate adjective Rav, Rav, we see the reappearance of that older form, that doubling of that second consonant, appear as a Dagesh forte. Take a look at the masculine plural. Do you see the Dagesh forte in the masculine plural? That's that geminate form. So Rab, beam. Why are we doing the hard B sound, B as in best? Because the Dagesh forte doubles the hard consonant. Rabim, Rabim, Rabim. And then same with the singular feminine, the Dagesh forte appearing from the older geminate form. So Rab, Ba, Rab, Ba, Rabba, Rabba. And also seeing it again with the plural feminine with the ending ot. So Rabot, 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 Rabot. Sometimes you're going to see with certain geminate adjectives that have a guttural letter, you might not see the Dagesh forte because remember that Dagesh forte is rejected by guttural letters. So you'll see compensatory lengthening. So with the word that we gloss in English as evil, ra or ra, ra with the patak, sometimes you see it with the commas, but ra, it becomes in the plural ra'im, ra'im, the compensatory lengthening from the short A-class patak to the long A-class comets, ra'im. And then in the feminine we see it again, ra'ah, ra'ah, and in the feminine plural we see it with ra'ot, ra'ot, ra'ot. For this chapter, I really want you to memorize using the Dwarfen song if you have to, but some way so that you're able to write out this paradigm. Tov, tovim, tova, tovot. Again, tov, tovim, tova, tovot. I will not even give you the masculine singular form. I'll just give you that we want to use the paradigm that is glossed in English as good. So you got to know your vocabulary and you've got to know the four inflections from tov to tovim to tova, tovot. I hope that you're seeing that there's a familiarity with our basic noun pattern. So by now you should have memorized how to do the basic noun pattern with the word horse as it is glossed in English. So you know that masculine singular is good, sus. Masculine plural is susim. Feminine singular is for mare, feminine horse. Good, susa. And then feminine plural, good, susot. And for extra credit, susayam. We should probably sing this. Sus, susim, susa, susot, susayam. Basic noun pattern. And of course, you want to be able to start recognizing those endings on other nouns. So there is no ending for the masculine singular. The eam ending for the plural You can have the comet's hay, the sego tau, the patak tau, or perhaps none, depending on the vocabulary word, for the feminine singular and the feminine plural oat, the holum wow tau. And don't forget that dual iam. That is the accent on the consonant with the patak, yod, hirek, often referred to by some Hebrew scholars as the diphthong with the final form mem. Iam, the dual form. Notice how similar they are to the adjective endings. Nothing for the masculine singular, eem for the plural, the hirek yod, final form mem, ah for the feminine singular, the comet's hay, and ot for the feminine plural, the holum wow tau. Tov, tovim, tova, tovot. Again, get on your Jorvin. Tov, tovim, tova, tovot. Of course, recognizing the forms is only one part of the chapter. How are adjectives used in the Hebrew Scriptures? We're going to look at three ways that adjectives are used. Adjectives can be used attributively, that is, describing a quality, a characteristic of a noun. It can be used predicatively, that is, completing the sentence or the clause, predicating what the noun is. A predication is expressing what is the noun, the subject. Oftentimes we have to supply the existential or copulative verb of being, like to be. And sometimes now adjectives can function like nouns. This is called substantive use, substantival adjectives, where, like we saw with zakein, can be describing the quality of a person being old, or it could actually be used as a noun and describing that old man is doing something, so functioning like a noun. Let's look more specifically at each of these uses. The attributive use, the critical piece here is to understand that as it's modifying a noun, describing a characteristic or a quality, oftentimes in English, we'll put the adjective before the noun it modifies. That's not the case in attributive adjectives. Rather, in the Hebrew, those attributive adjectives come after the noun they are modifying. The critical piece is also to recognize that the Hebrew adjective must agree with the noun it's modifying in grammatical gender, in number, and also in terms of definiteness. If the noun is definite, then the adjective must be definite. If the noun is indefinite, then the adjective must be indefinite. Now, please remember that there are three ways of demonstrating definiteness. The first way that we learned is by adding the definite article. So yes, adjectives take the definite article to make them definite. Nouns can also be definite if they're a proper noun, like a name or a place. And we will learn that nouns can also be definite if they have attached to them what is called a pronominal suffix, sometimes referred to as a possessive suffix. This we'll learn in chapter 9. So three ways for this chapter. It's critically looking at whether they have the definite article or not. So the presence of the definite article or the absence of the definite article. However, for an attributive adjective, it must agree in definiteness with its noun as well as grammatical gender and number. And they usually come after. So just to make it all clear, attributive adjectives agree with their nouns in grammatical gender, number, definiteness, and usually after. And this might be a nice quiz slide. Let's take a look at some examples. This is not in your grammar book, but we're going to be using a helpful table from another grammar so that we can walk through. So the first example that we have glossed in English as the good man, we have a noun followed by an adjective. The noun is ish, but you see that it has attached to it the definite article. Now, the expected definite article is a hey with a patak followed by a dagesh forte doubling the next consonant. However, the aleph is a guttural letter and it rejects the dagesh forte, so through compensatory lengthening, the expected patak becomes a comets. So it's ha-ish, ha-ish, ha-ish. The adjective is tov, glossed in English as good. It also has the definite article attached to it, making it a definite adjective, and therefore it's got the hey with the patak and the dagesh forte doubling the tet. So it's hat tov, hat tov, hat tov, ha'ish hat tov. And we would gloss this again in English as the good man. Notice that you see that the noun and the adjective are masculine, singular, and both have the definite article and therefore definite. And we see the adjective following the noun. We can see this as well if we were to do the good woman. So ha'isha, ha'isha has that definite article, and then hatova, ha'isha, hatova. Notice that both are feminine singular. In this case, they both have the comets hey, identifying them as feminine singular, and both of them have the definite article, the hey with the patak and the doubling of the next consonant with the dagesh forte. In the case of ha'isha, of course, we have the guttural letter rejecting the dagesh forte, and therefore compensatory lengthening with the appearance of the comets under the hey. We have, just to read through the next ones, Isha Tova, Isha Tova. Notice agreement in feminine singular and indefiniteness, indefiniteness. So still the adjective is functioning attributively. Or how about Anashim Hatovim, Ha'anashim Hatovim. Both are definite, both have the definite articles, both are masculine and plural, the eem ending. Notice that this is the irregular. It actually is a older form with that nun appearing. So it's one of those ones that you get used to or you memorize, you write it on your vocab card. So ha'a nashim, ha'anashim, hatovim. Okay, so the good men. And notice you can have that be indefinite with anashim tovim. Anashim tovim. The noun and the adjective are masculine plural and both are indefinite. Therefore, the adjective is functioning attributively. Notice also it follows the noun it is modifying. On page 59, you have some nice examples of this as well. We've seen ish tov, ha'ish hatov, isha tova. We have ha'isha hatova, ha'isha hatova. And then we have already seen anashim tovim. And then we've seen a definite, ha'anashim hatovim. And then look at this, good woman, as it is glossed in the English language. We have the appearance of that older form for the feminine plural. I know it's got that Hirik Yod mem, final form mem ending. Nashim looks masculine, but we know by our vocab that this is actually the feminine plural, so women. But notice that the adjective is still maintaining its consistency with its endings, ot, to, vote. So just because the noun may have an irregular ending, the adjective will maintain its consistency with its own ending. So it's going to be feminine plural because the noun is feminine plural. Nashim tovot. Nashim tovot. And even when we see that with the definite article attached, Hanashim hatovot. Hanashim hatavot. So again, even though we might see in some of the nouns an irregular form, whether it's masculine looking like it has a feminine form or feminine looking like it's having a masculine form, the adjectives will follow their basic pattern. Tov, tovim, tova, tovot. Again, attributive adjectives will agree with their nouns in grammatical gender, masculine or feminine, number, singular or plural, definiteness, whether the presence of the definite article or the absence of the definite article, and usually attributive adjectives will follow their nouns that they are modifying. Let's take a look at the predicative use. This is something that may be a little different for us coming out of an English-speaking context. The idea behind this is we often have to supply a verb of being. This verb of being is what we call an existential or copulative, the idea that it is expressing a relationship, a predicative relationship. And we have with that a adjective that agrees the noun in grammatical gender and in number, but not definiteness. Gender, number, but not definiteness. The predicate adjective never takes a definite article. Let me say that again. The predicate adjective never takes the definite article. So our quiz slide might appear something like this. Predicate adjectives agree with their nouns in grammatical gender, whether feminine or masculine, number, whether plural or singular, but not in definiteness. So the noun might be definite, but the predicate adjective will not. The noun might be indefinite, and the predicate adjective will be indefinite. And in that case, you have to use context to determine whether it's an attributive or a predicate adjective. Usually, predicate adjectives appear before, usually. Sometimes not so the case. So that does help us determine when we have indefinite adjectives attached to indefinite nouns, whether they're functioning attributively or predicatively. Let's take a look at Blackboard 15.1. Remember again, as the underline there says, a predicate adjective is always indefinite. So here we have tov, our paradigm adjective, appearing before. It's masculine, it's singular, and it's indefinite. And then we have our noun. The subject is masculine, singular, and it has the appearance of the definite article, the hey with the patak and the dagesh forte, doubling the next consonant. In this case, the next consonant is a guttural letter, rejects the dagesh forte, so we have compensatory lengthening. The patak, short A class, becomes a long A class comets. This would be translated or glossed in English as the man is good. If we were to read it just straight through, it'd be good, the man. But we have to communicate it well in English, right? So we take the more definite element, which would be the noun because it has a definite article, use that as the subject, and the predicate of the clause or sentence would be the adjective, and we supply the English verb of being. This is called a verbless clause or verbless sentence. It's that the verb is not explicitly there in form, but it is implicitly there in its syntactical relationship. So tov ha'ish would be communicated in English as the man is good. Let's take a look at some examples. We've already seen tov ha'ish, the man is good. It could also be ha'ish tov. Now there the adjective follows the noun. However, the noun has the definite article and the adjective does not. So we know immediately that that adjective is going to be a predicate adjective predicating something about the man. What is it predicating? That the man is good. We see this as well in the second example. Tova ha'isha. Tova ha'isha. So here the adjective is before. It agrees in grammatical gender feminine, number singular, but not in definiteness because isha has the definite article, so it's ha isha, and it can be communicated in English as the woman is good, whether the tova is before the noun or after the noun. Ha isha tova, the woman is good. Ha isha tova. The critical piece there is that the adjective does not have the definite article and therefore it is predicate. Look again at the plural forms. So tovim ha'anashim. Tovim ha'anashim. The men are good. If we were just to read it from right to left, good ones, the men. But again, we have to communicate it well in English. We have to supply the verb of being. So the men, the more definite, comes first as the subject, and then tovim as the adjective, predicate adjective expressing or completing the rest of the predicate concept or relationship. So the men are good. And that can be even the case when the predicate adjective follows the noun because the predicate adjective still does not have the definite article. Ha'anashim tovim. Ha'anashim tovim. We see that also with women, right? Tovot hanashim. Tovot hanashim. Tovot hanashim. Here we have the irregular form of women in the plural. It looks like a masculine ending, but we know our vocab well enough to know that no, this is from isha. It's just that it looks like it has a masculine ending, but we know that it's feminine plural, and therefore the adjective maintains its consistency with its own paradigm, so it does have the feminine plural ending ot. Tovot hanashim. Hanashim, watch out for that dagesh forte in the nun. Hanashim, and therefore this is communicating the women are good. And it could be Hanashim tovot. Hanashim tovot. And means the same thing. The women are good. Predicate adjectives agree with their nouns in grammatical gender, number, so feminine singular, feminine plural, masculine singular, masculine plural, but they are not agreeing in terms of definiteness. Predicate adjectives never take a definite article. Again, predicate adjectives never take definite article. They usually come before, but. So again, for our adjective uses for this chapter, we have seen the attributive, the predicative, and now we're looking at the substantive. Sometimes we call this substantival adjectives. What is the substantive use? Well, we can take a word like wise, an adjective glossed in English as wise, chacham, chacham, and by itself, maybe attached as a subject of a verb, or perhaps being the direct object of a verb, it functions as a noun. And it can take a definite article. Of course, you are aware of your definite article rules, and we're bumping up against a hey with the comments in chacham, chacham. So the definite article is going to appear as a hey with a segel. So he chacham, he chacham, he chacham. And if it's used substantively like a noun, we would communicate this in English as the wise one, or in this case, since it is masculine singular, the wise man. It can be, again, the subject of a verb, or it can be the object of a verb, or in the example they give us, an object of the preposition. So let's read this. Again, we're reading right to left. So, Bain Tov Uvain Ra. Bain Tov Uvain Ra. So you should be familiar with the preposition bain. It's then followed by the adjective tov, functioning substantively as a noun, so between good, and then we have a conjunction while bumping up against a labial consonant bait, and therefore the conjunction while becomes a shurek, And then we have the expected dagesh lina drop out because it's got that vowel sound attached to it. So uvain, uvain. And then we have ra, which is an adjective, but here functioning substantively and therefore like a noun. And then this can be glossed in English as between good and between evil. We might even see this with the preposition im. Im. That's an ayin with a hirek followed by a final form mem attached to the adjective yashar. Yashar, upright, righteous. That student who turned in the quiz answers that were attached to the bathroom stall at the seminary. We said yashar, a righteous person, right? Yashar, upright. So here we have the definite article attached to yashar. That's the hey with the patak, with the dagesh forte doubling the next consonant, in this case the yod. So hi yashar, together from this Micah 2:7, im hayashar, im hayashar. So with the one who is upright, with the upright one or the righteous one. Table 15:7 reviews what we've just looked at. So you can have hacham, chacham, indefinite adjective referring to a person who is hacham, a wise man. If you wanted to make it definite, we'd add the definite article, and knowing our definite article rules, having it attached to a chet with the comets gives us the hey with the segel as the definite article. So hey, ha, cham, hey, chacham. Same when we have the definite article attached to a resh. We have the compensatory lengthening occur because the resh, not a gesh, likes to act like a guttural letter, rejects the dagesh forte, so we have compensatory lengthening. So ha, ra, ha, ra. And if you want to sing a song from the 1970s, ha, ra, ah, ha, ra, ah, ha, ra, ah, ha, ra, ah. So just for summary, on page 62, attributive adjectives follow the noun they modify, usually, and yes, they do agree in grammatical gender, number, and definiteness or indefiniteness. And the indefinite part makes it a little bit tricky, and context rules the day on that. Predicate adjectives usually precede, sometimes they'll follow the noun they modify. However, you know when they follow the noun they modify that they're predicate because they do not take the definite article. They do not agree in definiteness. They do agree in grammatical gender and number. And lastly, substantive adjectives. They are functioning independently either as subjects of verbs or objects of verbs or objects of prepositions and prepositional phrases. Note that when you look up an adjective in the lexicon, lexicon comes from the word lexi, which means sort of small component, um, basically the reduced form. And so you're going to look for the reduced form, which for adjectives is masculine singular. So if you're looking up an adjective that you do not know in your lexicon, you're looking up its lexical form, and it's often going to be in the masculine singular. Lastly, for this chapter, an odd component that can be a little bit daunting for first year students, something called the directional hey. Directional hey. It is an ending that looks a lot like the basic noun ending of comets hey and the basic adjective ending of comets hey, that feminine singular for both of them, but it actually is a directional ending comets hey. It is functioning in the same way that a prepositional phrase with L, which means in English glosses to or toward. So you might see haaretz, right? That's a definite article attached to the segulate noun. We see some changes there, vowel transformation in part because of it being just a unique noun when it is attached to a definite article. So haaretz, haaretz, we then attach to it with a maketh, the elevated hyphen, the preposition el. So el haaretz, this is sort of a word unit when you have a maketh. So el haaretz, it can mean to or toward the land. However, you can attach a directional comets hey to the word aretz, or in the case of the singular noun, eretz, without the definite article, eretz. And when we attach it, well, we have artsa, artsa. Now, to be quite honest, sometimes when I'm reading Hebrew and I come across artsa, to or toward the land or land, it looks a little confusing because I'm expecting more of a relationship between the resh and the tzadeh. Sometimes this is one that I actually have to look up. So artsa, 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 artsa. If you want to bring out the patak, artsa, ertsa. So there's a nice summary statement at the end, directional ending, comets hey, added at the end of the word. It's expressed the idea of motion towards someone or something. It's unaccented, and it's translated to or toward. So just be mindful of that. It's helpful to have that when you see particularly locations. You may see the directional comets hey appear on towns or cities or when it's talking spatially movement towards something. And that may be a helpful contextual way of distinguishing it between the other noun ending or adjective ending that is inflected for the feminine singular, the comets hey. So if the context is suggesting some type of place, location, and you see that comets hey, have in the back of your mind, oh, that's maybe directional, meaning to or toward. And here's some examples that you'll see in the scriptures. So bayit could become habaita, habaita, habaita. To bring out the patak, habaita, habaita. Ir for city, ha'ira, ha'ira. Notice that they're signaling for us that you don't accent the directional comets hey. Don't accent the directional comets hey. Another nice signal that this will be a directional comets hey rather than a noun or adjective feminine singular ending. Let's look at shemayim. Shemayim, there's a dual ending that we see, particularly with understanding the cosmology of the Hebrews in terms of their understanding of heaven. So Shemayim becomes, with the definite article, Hashamayma. 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 To heaven, toward heaven. How about Egypt? Mitzrayim. 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 Another dual ending having to do with upper and lower Egypt. So this concept of twofoldness of Egypt. Mitzrayim. Remember that the shva under the tzadeh is silent because hirek is short, and so a short I class vowel is short then silent, our two tutor Tommies. So if we were to put on a directional comets hey, it's mitzrayma, 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 mitzrayma. Notice that the shva underneath the yod is silent because the patak is short, right? So mitzrayma, mitzrayma, mitzrayma to bring out the accent on the P note. How about her, mountain? Her, mountain. If we make it definite as well as directional, it becomes ha-hara, 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 ha-hara. If we were just going to be expressing a location, that's sham, there, sham, there, shama, shama. Notice the appearance of the Dagesh forte from the geminate history of this noun. So to that place, to there, shama. Notice the accent, the tone syllable on the P note, and the directional comets hey. And then lastly, yam, yeah, yam, yam, sea. It can also be west. Sometimes the idea of if you're going west, you're going to the Mediterranean Sea, so yam. So here, this also a geminate having the duplication of the second consonant and the third consonant and appearing when it has an ending in that dagesh forte in the mem, the doubling of that geminate consonant. So yod comets accented with a mem to close the syllable. So yam ma, yama, yama, going toward the sea, toward the west, westward. Yama,